Happy holiday and a great new year. Welcome everyone back to the table. Look forward to another great evening. Go ahead and do a roll call.
Mr. Whitten?
Here.
Mr. Flanagan?
Here.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Here.
Mr. Harrison?
Here.
Ms. Torelli? Absent. Ms. Norvell? Here. Mr. Franks?
Here.
Mr. Boyer?
Here.
Mr. Knott? Absent. Ms. George?
Here.
Chair Morley?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Like a motion to approve the minutes from our December meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review them?
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve?
Second.
James Harrison, Steve Whitten. Thank you very much. Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor of approval?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. All right, Sergeant, you're up.
Happy New Year, everybody. First, I just want to say that since we met last, we had a boat parade, and it went over pretty well, I thought. Had a couple of jokers on the radio and the VHF, but it's something I'll address for next year. But all in all, I think it went pretty good without any issues. So for the month of December, the Marine unit wrote 67 boating citations. They had 40 calls for service. Unfortunately, for the month of December, we had quite a few burglaries concentrating on the south end of the city. Actually, all of them are on the south end of the city, including 4 of them on Southeast 15th Street. So basically what's kind of been happening is there's a group that travels all in South Florida, and they hit every city, all the marinas, and they try to steal mostly just Garmin GPSs. So we had a couple boats with Garmin's that were taken, and some of the issues we run into is people don't discover that they had a burglary until weeks or even a month or months after the fact, because they don't go down the boat every day, or they're out of the country or out of the state or what have you. So it's hard to get evidence for that. One of them we actually did get, the one that the boat was parked at the fisheries. The guy went on, took some rods, some other fishing equipment, and then there was another boat that happened to have their Yeti cooler sitting on the dock. He took that as well. But we had video of that guy. So they got a really good video of it. So the detectives are trying to identify that guy now. In most of the cases, sometimes people don't want to prosecute, sometimes people don't want us to print their boat. And since it's a property crime, it's up to them. You know, they're the victims. So if they say, no, I don't want prosecution, or no, I don't want you to process my boat, then there's nothing we can really do about it. I would say that's about half and half, but on a couple of them, we did get processing, we did get prints. Hopefully, I know none of them because it's been long enough now that we didn't get anything back on the prints as far as something to compare it to. But down in Miami, Miami-Dade, they made an arrest for boat burglaries. So I was notified of that. So I notified our detective bureau so they could go down and interview these suspects. As far as that goes, but they didn't want to make a statement. They lawyered up, so they weren't able to close the case out, but they are investigating it. Hopefully they can start matching some things up and closing out some of these cases that we've had in the past and some that we still have pending. Hopefully we can do that, maybe recover some of the GPSs and other equipment. So they did make an arrest on a boat burglary in the beginning of the month. They made an arrest it was one from downtown. That was someone was parking the New River. They were able to get video on that. The boat had video on it, and they were able to get video and match the video and the fingerprints up to a suspect. And then he tried to pawn fishing rods. Tried to pawn the fishing rods, and then the detectives discovered that, figured out who he was, and then he was trying to sell some of the other fishing rods that the pawn shop wouldn't take. So they contacted him, acted like they were buyers for the fishing rods. They met him and they arrested him on the spot. So hopefully maybe they can clear up a few other burglaries from that guy, because usually it's not their first time normally. Some of these depending on what's taken. Now, if it's the GPSs, then it's guys looking for those. If it's fishing rods or people leave their computers on board, it's like a lot of times it's crime opportunity for homeless or street people, that kind of thing. This guy actually wasn't a street person that got arrested. He was a known burglar that lives locally. So, but they put him in jail. He's still in jail. He's not going to make bond. He's got such a good history that he won't make any bond. Unfortunately, we did have a busy month with that, and it's right around the corner from where we live. You know, but they do it obviously at night. You know, when there's maybe one boat out on the water, and it's at the very end, as everybody knows, 15th Street, where a patrol car is not going to go too often because you don't want to get stuck down there. You get a call, you know, west of that. So it's actually a really great spot if you want to break into something. But they do have great cameras there, I'll say. If you're in the fisheries marina, they have really, really good cameras. And some of the bigger boats have their own cameras as well, and that really comes up.
All right. Anything else?
Yes, sir.
Some of those, I understand, robberies are now breaking and entry. Is that considered different than what Mr. Fulton got?
That would be a burglary. Burglary of how the state recognizes burglary of a motor vehicle.
Like some of these breaking and entry?
Yeah, they were. Yes, sir.
Which takes it to a higher level, I
Yeah, it's a
guess.
felony. Yeah. So if it was just like, if they stole something off the dock, that would be a larceny. So depending on the value of the item, if the item is worth $750 or more, that'd be a felony. Or if it's their person's third larceny and they've been charged with, then that would become an automatic felony. If it's a burglary where you enter, you get on board the vessel itself, you take anything even if it's left out on the back deck, and then you take a fishing rod, someone's left out, or it's in there, you enter that vessel, go on board the vessel, that's a burglary, which is an automatic felony.
I was really disturbed when I heard a number of captains, like, next day or two, are unhappy campers.
Yeah. I wouldn't be either. We do our best, we go and they call it in, we take the report, we try to do as much processing and look for video, we go all around, we canvass the whole area, see if people who live on the block have video, maybe we can match the time up and try to get a suspect that we can get a hold of and interview, everything. A lot of these are, sometimes they're water-based, where someone's in a kayak or a small boat. These all really seem to be land-based. They come in, you know, in a car or on a bike or on foot, and they take what they want and they go. And it's so easy to pull those truck plotters out, you know, cut the wires, it's gone.
Yeah.
In a minute.
I think that the patients may know about this, but I understood that Garmin was supposed to be coming up with a system where the unit would be disabled if you needed to keep it, and you couldn't reinstall it, or you needed some different software or something, so that it would obviously, hopefully.
That would be great, because to be quite honest, these guys will skip over the Ray Marines, they'll, just Garmin, they just want just the Garmins. Anything else, Humminbird, Ray, whatever you call it, they
don't want them.
Garmins, that's it, they'll skip right over that. Because the guy had some stuff stolen and his Ray Marines were still on board, and he was like, I wonder why they take it, go, because they only want Garmin, you have Ray Marine, they only want Garmin.
It's good taste.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you actually specifically about Garmin, because several years ago on this board, someone had brought up the idea of tracing the wiring harnesses. You know, so when they cut the lines, they've gotta buy a new harness, you know,
Right.
somebody, so it's, and I know that Garmin years ago had actually looked into doing some kind of tracking or matching of, you know, the serial number of the unit with the wiring harness and things. It would be one way to do it, but that's not a local thing,
Yeah.
it's more national thing. Have you heard anything?
I haven't heard anything,
about that?
or about the
Yeah.
disabling, that would be great, I mean,
Yeah.
it would really cut down on that stuff if they couldn't reuse it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions for the sergeant? Thank you very much, and as always, thank you for your service. It means a lot to us. All right, moving on then. Item 5 has been deferred, so let's go to item 6, dock permit request for 1028 Cordova Road. Frank, if you don't mind coming up and stating your name for the record. Any presentation or just?
Yeah, I do. What I can show you, other than the package we got. How you doing, Frank Romando? Who am I today? I'm with boat lifters today. This is along Cordova Road. That, where the new, beautiful new seawall has been installed. And it is there, our new swell. That's somebody that parked there and just didn't really pay attention to what they were doing. And everything there and how that all, but to show everybody our concern is, that's what it's gonna look like. The ramp and everything stays away from any of the drainage. The construction itself will be a pile there, and then 5 piles, which nothing attached to the seawall. And you can see that from here, which is the main point, there.
Nice.
So you know, if we could blow that up, but everything goes over the cap. Nothing touches the cap. It's pretty straightforward. The rest of the package has shown the clearances and the swales that we have to maintain. There was another, this property was just sold. It was approved under the other owner, okay? We are in the process now of the transfers, which I really don't have to worry about till I submit to the city. We figured you nice folks approval so that I, bring that into one nice package for the zoning folks. And that's basically it. Not really much more to it, other than,
Hold that picture right there,
yes, sir,
that's a question. That drain that's right there,
yeah.
on the front of that stuff over there, there's obviously a drain on the other side, and it has should have a stop on that thing for when the water's high, or otherwise the water is gonna come up on the backside of that wall. Is there a plug on the other side of that?
Excuse me, a plug on the
Well,
other?
there should be.
You mean a check valve?
That wouldn't be,
That's not my,
No, I know, I
Public
said,
works.
I was just asking a question, because I don't know how long you've been there, but, we've had a couple of king tides and stuff on there, and the one problem they have with a king tide, why they put that wall there, is to prevent the king tide from flooding that street and everything else,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So, it isn't the fact that it comes over the walls as much as it comes up through our porous
Comes up
lime rock.
through yeah, because that only drains out into the,
That drains the
drains
street,
into there, so, when the head pressure reverses, it comes up through there.
right, what I was just looking at, I said, if you've been there for some time, I said, this drain that I see that's on the side of it, there's a lot of mud and everything else there, obviously it's been,
It could have
flooded
been,
and-
what might be a question that I might be able to answer for you?
I said, when you have a heavy rainstorm, all right, and the tide and stuff is high, that street wouldn't drain unless there's something on the other side of that wall, correct? I mean, this has nothing to do with you, I was just.
I would
how
assume
long have you had the
engineering-wise-
I'm not
property?
the homeowner.
You haven't had
Yeah.
the property that long?
He's not the homeowner. He's
I'm not the
contractor.
homeowner, I'm
You're right. You're right.
I'm the expediter, but yes, you would be correct in this.
So, I mean, this is where, you're gonna build a dock right here where this thing is, right? Where the drain and stuff is? I don't know if you've been over there, is my question, it's
Yeah,
not for
of
the
course I have.
homeowner. My question is that one of the reasons they put this wall in over there was to stop Cordova Road at king tide and flood tide, that whole road and stuff floods. So in order to stop that, they put the sheet pile in, and then they put that big cap that's on the top to stop the water from flooding the streets and from their area where the homes
I
are.
understand the principle.
In order for that to work, that drain and stuff has to go to the outside, but there also has to be a kick plate when that.
Oh, on the
so
other
that
side, I
when
see
the
what
tide
you, well, that
comes
would be
up,
up to
it stops.
these guys that built this, yeah, I would assume that it was there, it was in your engineering specs.
Well,
If I built it, I would have done it.
yeah, those things, the reason I was saying that is, I know the outfit that puts those things in there, that plug has to be cleaned on a regular basis, and I know you're the homeowner, you know anything about that. But I said, I was curious when I just seen that drain,
that's-
whether or not you happen to look over the wall and see.
Let me
if it-
make a note of that he, that was brought up, and it's something that we let it, if you look back, over here,
Frank, where's your shoreside gangway in reference to that drain? You
4
have-
feet, about right, if you look at, let me bring that up. That was, it's the drain is probably around here.
Okay.
So it's a good 4 or 5 feet away.
Okay.
And, that kick plate is probably located somewhere along here on that wall. So I'll make the homeowner aware of that there's,
See, where your dock is the point I was trying to get across, where your dock is, that thing has to be replaced on a regular basis, has to be pulled out and cleaned and put in there, otherwise, that, if it's stuck open, that'll flood that street.
is that on the homeowner or the city?
City.
It's
But they
city,
have to have access.
but, I mean, you'd have to, the
You have
homeowner
access, yeah, of course.
the homeowner has to report
I'll
it.
make him aware of that.
Yeah.
That, if he sees one of the guys, the city guys there, he knows what they're up to.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Well, just a comment, that's actually a very good point, because yes, is there access to the drain to be able to clean the drain out with the dock
sure.
up against it? There is 2 feet, I think, between the dock and the
Yes, there
wall. In
is.
particular, the drain, yes.
There's 2.5 feet between where that pile's 12 inches. I think I showed 2 feet.
2 feet on center.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the question is that enough, to get in
Yeah,
there?
well,
to
yeah.
if the city's gonna have to change it and stuff over there, it isn't a question if they can just put some
There's your
kind of a little,
clearance.
skiff up there
2
or something
feet.
and clean that plug, they'll have to get at that.
And it already is clogging up, so it's flooding, so there's
I
not.
can see that it's
Yes,
flooding.
so it's flooding, and some of the drains are, they are having to clean them up, and they're.
Doesn't take much to clog
The
them.
city's been good as far as when the king tides come, they're there proactively to wait for
Couple
the
of
tide to
pond
come
fronts.
up and, clean the thing out. But can they clean it out from the inside, or, I think they gotta clean it out from the outside.
It has to be, it almost looks like a cone and stuff over there, like a traffic cone. It's put in there and it's locked into place and stuff over there. When you pull it out, there's a filter that's on that, and that's what clogs and stuff. That's to make sure that when the stuff goes back up in there, that it doesn't stop the drain and stuff up, the way that it's tapered, so when the tide goes back out, it comes back out. And I said, but the reason that I was questioning that is the fact that any of those drains that are along Cordova all have to drain in order for that system to work.
And the person most affected though by that drain would be the owner of the.
This guy lives right across the street.
It's
Yeah,
right
exactly.
there, yeah, so,
It would behoove him to keep an eye on it,
yeah,
which I will mention, definitely.
yeah.
Good point, thank you, sir.
Any other comments or questions for the applicant's representative? Anyone from the public for any questions or comments to the applicant?
I have one thing.
Andy?
I think, Frank, you know this, but what we bump up against in other addresses is people have actually drilled through the new seawall and installed their own conduit holes. They've also attached electrical and plumbing using screws to the new seawall. And
No,
that's
all
not
that
allowed.
underneath this.
That's not allowed. So your
No, I
plan,
know
your
that.
plan, that's not, but the code is actually out there enforcing that right now.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
There's a couple of things code might wanna take a look at.
Yeah, they're out there looking at that. Yep.
Took my speech.
Oh,
Go ahead, go ahead.
Stole your thunder.
That's all
Go ahead.
It's all good. Anything else to speak of to the applicant? Okay. If there's no other questions, I'd like a motion on this item.
Motion approved.
Okay, Bob
Second.
Prince, motion approved. Elizabeth George, okay. Any further discussion?
I just think that it's important enough that we need to acknowledge Norbert's point when this heads up.
Yep.
Because again, if we're blocking that would be just gross negligence on our part. So
Absolutely.
we simply have to acknowledge that there is a potential issue with somebody needs to be.
Well, I
The
think,
thing of it is, that shouldn't have anything to do with homeowner,
I
that's the
agree,
city.
I agree,
Right.
but if they cover it, he's gonna have something to do with it.
Yeah,
well, looking at the plan with the spacing with 2.5 feet, it's not right up against the face, and obviously it's a floating dock, so it'll, come and go with the tide. And I know Max, and I'm sure the homeowner would have no issue with coordinating with the city.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
Access and all that, so.
No, he's real good.
Absolutely, okay. No discussion, let's put it to a vote. All in favor of the applicant's request, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you, Frank.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, folks. Have a happy new year.
You as well. Ted, I
Sir,
have a question. On his picture there is not related to his project, but going back to the photograph of the street and the
Drain.
where the drain was that Norb was talking about?
Mhm.
Yeah, there.
Wait a minute, I got a better one.
If you drive along Cordova, there's quite a number of residences or properties that look like that.
That's horrible.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
some
my
of the-
neighborhood, so I'm there every day.
You know, if you got construction going on there, you got construction workers, Max has told me that he's gonna get the rocks.
Yeah, but
Keep the
they're
people from-
parking, that's not their, that's the city's property.
Like I said, you know, if there's somebody out there enforcing that for the guys that are working.
Ted, what do you think is, you know,
Well,
Are there
Andrew,
parking signs?
what's the city status of their landscaping plan for Cordova?
Well, what I can tell you about that is that when it came to my attention that people were in violation for tapping into the seawall and whatnot, I mentioned the landscaping concerns along that stretch. So, I know that they're looking at it now. I'm surprised it's taking that long for them to look at it.
Yeah.
It does look poor, and I understand, and I appreciate that, I understand that. I'll try to
You guys
find out
spend money on
more,
that grass and
I'll try to find out
it
more
look
from the board.
nice, you know.
Okay.
Do they have signs along there that say no parking or?
You're allowed
I mean,
to
not
park.
that
They're allowed to
every-
park. They're allowed to park.
That's where the landscaping trucks and
Yeah.
and things.
Yeah, everyone parks there. They can actually access the seawall, the public can, it's publicly owned. They can't access the docks because they're private, but the seawall is accessible. So people park there to fish, they park there to do work.
I'll
they
try to find
landscape
out more.
trucks,
Hey, where do they run the electric?
up and over.
Well, no, there's also,
And there's pre-poured conduits already in there.
there's two of them for each.
Oh, okay.
If they use those, or they have to go like you're doing, you're going up and over with structure, you said, right?
I believe that's his
Yeah.
plan.
So that's,
So,
yeah.
We're just looking for this
Two
conceptual.
feet, if they can get on that homeowner's dock, I
Mhm.
mean, if they don't,
Probably
you know, they can, the 2 feet should be wide enough that, and where they are, to pull those things out and to clean them and stuff over there. I don't know that, cause I don't know the city's been going around there and stuff. But I said, you're right about one thing, they clog quick because of stuff floating in.
One pond farm, it's done.
Thank you,
Good.
Frank, as always, you're good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, folks. Have a great year.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to our next item, Eric Metz. Have a Los Olas Marina update for us?
Computer over here too?
Yeah. You got a flash drive, I'm guessing?
Yeah, no, it's already.
Okay, great.
We'll see if this works. So, first, Eric Metz, Senior Director of Development for Suntex Marine. I think today, I don't know how familiar everybody is with Los Olas Marina and what we're doing there and so forth. I just don't know the background, but to kind of give a little bit of history on it, and you guys may know better than me, to be honest. RFP was awarded in 2018, 2019 with the planning process. We formally broke ground this year on the marina. We've been earnest and working on it about 6 months or so. And the kind of the key component of it is what you see there in the rendering is there is what we would call really a signature restaurant right there on the water. I'll go through the site plan in a second. But also here, kind of the main, we call our marina services building. And that's designed really, in our view, to really support the marine industry that we have here in South Florida. That second floor, I can't even tell you how many boat brokers and boat industry folks want to be here at Los Olas. We're very excited about that. The first floor, what we can share publicly in this process is we have two principal tenants that will be taking space there. First is if anybody is from Chicago or that part of the world, Gibson Steakhouse is the most likely tenant for the signature restaurant here. They are a phenomenal operator, have a lot of history and a lot of credibility, and is something I think that would really complement what Los Olas is and off the trim this year. The other side is we're working with Elliott Wolf and Be Nice, which is Coconuts and Top Hat, a lot of other restaurants. And Elliott's looking at a space in this building here around the corner, but also kind of in this space as well. So that's kind of news that not a lot of folks know about, but we think is very important to share, that we're trying to make sure we have a atmosphere of restaurants that really cater not just, it's a range of customers, including also the folks who are patronizing the marina itself. So to give a little bit more of a kind of a snapshot, we have some better pictures as we go through here. Up on the top here, you can see right around July is when we started in earnest with doing the fencing, the MOT, and really, I apologize to Elizabeth and folks who live there, but really closing down Birch for starting the site work. As we've gone through, you can kind of see it's been slow going all the way up until really in November is when we started the actual dredge basin construction, and then in December, now January, really focusing on the dredge. For the first 4 months of the project, the main mission was just getting the sewer in the ground.
I know folks hear a lot about the infrastructure in Fort Lauderdale and what it takes. I can assure you what we ran into and the complications were phenomenal. Thankfully, we were able to get past everything. We're now down to the last sewer manhole. But we opened basically about 600 feet of ground there, about 15 feet deep, all the way down, just to find where everything was. So we spent a tremendous amount of money doing that. The best part about that is as we went through this process, there is an old FPL conduit there, supposedly live. Don't touch it. We touched it, totally empty. Spent a few $100,000 basically not to touch something that didn't actually need to be touched. So a lot of that's been going on in the project. Again, a little bit of a zoom in view of where we were in July. All the docks were still there, all the old fixed docks, all the utilities, and also the site itself. This is yesterday from our camera, and you can see the dredge basin right here. To date, we've dredged from probably about 200 feet off the bridge to about where the barge is. This basin right there, I thought it held about 30,000 cubic yards of material. It easily has 40,000 that we put back into that hole. So we're looking at starting our next phase of hauling dirt coming on Monday to then start that process and really bring that back down. So we're reusing that dredge basin as we hydraulically dredge to put more material in there and then haul it off site. Seawall, which I know you guys are very familiar with, we have about, I think, 650 or 700 feet in total of our new seawall in place, which runs from over here all the way down here. The reason we didn't complete that is, as I mentioned, we're also building, as part of this project, a new pump station for the city. That pump station is going to handle basically most of the sanitary sewer for the entire north part of Lauderdale Beach. It's going to go through that station. It's right here off camera, and the old one is right here. So in terms of our critical path, that's been the linchpin to the entire project, is getting that new station up and running. If you've driven by there, you probably saw really big, massive concrete structures. That hole is about 40 feet deep of just, sewage. So it's a very fun project. But anyway, the actual structure's in place. We're looking at January, February is when we're hoping to actually go ahead and turn the switch. And then looking at probably March demo of the old station there. And that old station was installed, I want to say, in '57, I think the plans have. So, and a lot of original components. So this is needed to get that station back and operational. Our schedule, next bit here, as we've gone through this product, we've discovered a lot of things. The biggest thing we discovered is the soil there, despite doing our due diligence, wasn't nearly as good as we thought it was. So we're gonna be doing 75-foot batter piles on our east to west run here. And folks who've installed batter piles, that is a very big pile for what we're doing, given the weight requirements. That's gonna take us a solid month. We're looking at probably 2 a day is our hope. I think it's gonna be 1, so maybe like 2 months in this stretch, but it's a very slow going because of that. As we go to the north-south run here, those will get a little bit smaller. Again, we're gonna stop right about here where that, I think the cursor is, and then come back probably in April, May, finish that wall out and finish the batter piles. And again, that's because we have the pump station still active and there's a bunch of utilities that run right in this area. We also had the fun of realizing that, all the boats show stuff that's happened out here. We've pulled I-beams and all types of things out of the ground that, broke the dredge, broke the gearbox, broke the motor, broke the hydraulics. And we're still pulling out stuff every day. There is just a ton of trash and ton of debris that has been deposited in this area. And we're expecting to find more of it. So that's really also hampered our production rate. We're hoping to be about 2,500, 2,700 yards per day of material, and we're probably about 15 right now. So it's been really slow going. A little bit of an aerial for you to kind of show what's been done so far. So again, most of this area in yellow, that's been put in place. That dredge area is right there. And again, we're hoping to finish that dredge probably in March, April with a finish grade on that probably by June. One unfortunate thing that we came across during this process is we'd only planned to do the part in yellow. And as we opened up the cap and really exposed everything, We realized the seawall that headed south, including right in front of the garage here, and as you jump to the south of Los Olas Bridge, that area, or that wall rather, is just not in good shape. There's no other way to say it. It was installed in '97, but it has just not held up. We think as part of the installation method of what happened, there's a ton of other material behind it that's a little bit unusual in how it was done. So we're looking at doing a new wall in front of this one, which is under permit right now, running for another 825 feet. So when we're all done, we're probably looking at about 1,700 linear feet of new seawall we're putting in place. So that's also going to be another part of the project. What we did not anticipate in doing that though, we are going to be having another impact really to Venetian and circulation around Los Olas Circle, which is to do this work, we will be closing Los Olas Circle for probably about 2.5 months. And we will be doing most of the work, if not all the work landside, using Los Olas Circle to do that effort. So that unfortunately is a new part of it. Paying for that, we're working with the city right now. It's a little bit of a partnership. Not all of that land is just for Suntex and the marina that we're doing. A bunch of it is there's boat show down there on the south side and a lot of other activities that's not just Suntex. So we're working with the city right now to figure out what that's going to be. And that'll be before city commission sometime in the future, hopefully February, March is what we're targeting. But that's a little bit up in the air right now on the details. Schedule-wise, what we're aiming to do, kind of to go with the highlight here, is Boat Show 2023. That's really the focus. What we're trying, and use the word try because it's not a commitment, is to have the docks in place, but no utilities available, but the docks in place that Boat Show can actually use the area. The Achilles heel to it is FPL is very fun to deal with, very exciting, very fast. They respond every minute. And so as we look at our FPL installation schedule, we're hoping to be done August, September with that. And if we're able to do it, that'll allow us to actually have power out there, and that's a critical thing for Boat Show. And then water and sewer, that's kind of the easier part of it, but that'll kind of come in that time period. The buildings, we're looking at completing those. That's gonna be probably first quarter of next year, 2024, realistically. We're hoping that the tenant spaces will also be built out, so they'll be opening, April, May, June. But that depends on the tenants and getting their stuff together. That's kind of separate from what we're doing. That's the overall kind of schedule. So that's it in a nutshell. I can go over more detail, more questions, but I wanted to keep this brief, but in how much detail folks want to get into. So,
Okay. Thank you, Rick. Any questions for Barry?
Eric, what's the total after all the revisions of the linear footage?
It'll be the linear footage dock. I believe is over 8,500.
And they're Bellingham?
All Bellingham. That's correct. Yep, all Bellingham.
This is your first, Suntex's first development project, I believe, wouldn't it? And
First,
maybe you got into some things that you didn't know about. Jimmy knows all about putting those pilings in, I think that helps his propeller business.
We should have smoothed all the stuff out in the channel.
yeah.
There's a lot out there.
You live and learn, right? But yeah, I mean, this has been finding what you have found down there. I mean, it's been a lot of surprises, and all the franchise utility providers, ATT. It's funny, you open that stuff up and it's just everywhere. We have a self-supporting pole we put in, and it's literally it's 4 inches from ATT and it's like 4 inches from the sewer. Like that's your tolerance.
If we could help them when they go to the commission with, requests for funding or something, I think the presence would be helpful there.
Absolutely.
The city paid for the pump station, didn't they?
They contributed the majority of it. We contributed, I think, about $400,000 to it, but also all of our time and effort. That's just kind of pro bono, if you will. So it's substantial if you include all that.
City, I think, is 3 million, the city put in, you put in 400,000.
They put 2.5, we put in 400. Yeah, correct.
I know it was quite expensive for moving that pump station, that I had a little problem with, how much that was to move the pump station, on $3,400,000 to move the pump station, and the city took the bite of the whole thing. Now, with that, I have a question on that south side of that seawall and stuff over there. You say the city and you were in a partnership. How much is the city in for and how much are you in for on, that south seawall?
Not determined yet. So
Okay.
two reasons for that. One is we're looking at the best way to install it. We're hoping to not use batters down there, for a lot of reasons. One of the principal ones is you go to the south side. Let me flip to it. I'll show you why. On the south side here, the city has both a very deep, force main that collects most of Little Souls and the Isles, actually goes that way and then goes down. Plus also the principal water connection to the island comes through here as well. And that's also, it's fairly deep, but we prefer not to put a batter right through it. In addition, there's MCI, Verizon, AT&T, Tico, and I think one other joint trench down there. And so finding those things, if we're putting a 75-foot batter into it, we're probably gonna be below them. That's our concern. So we're looking to figure that out. The cost approach to it is what we're trying to validate right now and see what it's gonna be. The other hard part on cost-wise is that typical seawall, we're gonna have more upland impacts, and we don't know the full scope of that, so we're going through the actual cost process right now to figure out what it's gonna be.
What kind of seawall are you putting in there? Putting in sheet pile and you're not gonna put panel wall in there, like sheet piles?
Yeah, it's gonna be a full sheet, yeah, so.
I said, that's the problem and stuff in there, there's not only what you said over there, but I said, I put the tile in for the boat show and stuff over there, and, there's a very heavy, what I mean by heavy, a very hot electrical line that's in there too, transmission cable runs in there,
South, yeah,
yes.
yes, correct, yeah, we're far away from that thankfully, but yes, I don't have a good answer for you, to be candid, but we're trying to work through that to understand what it's really gonna be to cost, and then try to offer the best compromise to the city, which is, a number, and we kinda go from there, so.
Quick question? Can you split apart the cost or the estimate of what your cost is going to be for the marina itself from the landside development?
Oh,
Now
yeah.
that you're this far into it, what do you think you're gonna be spending on the marina?
Total cost of the marina right now, is about all-in number, right now, not including the expansion,
Yeah.
is about 66.
No, I mean, with the dig out, all of that.
Yeah, no, so it's about $66.6 million for that, plus 66.6 million. So call it 67 plus or minus. And then the buildings themselves, not including any tenant improvements, no build out, just basic core and shell is about 24 million, I wanna say. And the marina is another, 30 million of that is gonna be marina. And then there's, soft costs, engineering, everything else above that, kinda goes to it. So it's about, that's from memory, round numbers.
Thanks. And one other selfish question, is there gonna be dockage for the restaurants?
We'll be docking dine, yeah, that's part of it, yeah.
He had you at Gibson's, didn't he?
Just stay friends with me, we live at the Portofino, we have lots of parking.
Okay, on the south side of the bridge, there's a mooring field out there. I know when the city moved out of Los Olas, there might have been 2 working mooring balls. It looks like there's a bunch up in there now.
Here?
How, yeah,
Yeah, that side of it, that side is not us.
who's managing that?
That is not us. Yeah.
Is it the city doing it, the city managing it? Oh, okay, I'm just
It is.
curious,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, no, I mean, the bigger challenge that we've had is, there's a lot of folks more out there, they just drop anchor. And it's been us trying not to hit them for March, that's been the bigger issue, so.
Or them not hit the wall.
Yeah, or them not hit the wall, or them, they jump, they jump on, you guys know, but they jump on our property, the construction site, you're like, what are you doing? It's not safe, so we have a lot of that going on, so.
Eric, you're at 8,500 lineal feet, is it?
Yeah, plus or minus, yeah.
The RFP or whatever was like for 66, where was the extra?
So I don't have a site plan here that shows all that, but one of the biggest linear footage increases is that on the north side here, that dock kicks out, and it kicks out both ways. So you have both north and south facing vessels. So that's included in your linear footage number, but we're way over the
They
6,700
got
number.
riparian ways from
Yeah.
Portofino.
Yeah, we're way past that.
What's your control and draft gonna be for depth there?
So, also a great question is, like, part of the history, I think, that Jonathan knows a lot about, is AT&T historically had a line here, that goes into the parking garage. And they took about like a decade to move it, and it finally got moved. And so with us and with our contractor, we're gonna be doing the final finished dredge, of Little Solis Bridge here, and also a little bit down south. So we'll be bringing the channel depth, I think it's at negative 22 from low, plus or minus, or from zero roughly. So our controlling depth as you go in from low will be about 17, 18, from low. And then as you get towards the actual bulkhead itself, will be about 12 to 14, from low. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, everybody has a different version of it, so yeah, so your 12 is like 14 or so, plus or minus. So substantial.
Do you now know the distance from the eastern boundary of the intercoastal to your face docks?
Not off the top of my head, no.
62?
They were, what, 20?
62.
Huh?
It was 62.
For the offset, yeah.
From the
62.
face duct to the
Yeah.
side of the ICW channel, 62 and a half.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is now.
What was the old, where we are now?
The old was 62 and a half.
So it hasn't changed that.
Yeah, that's the line is the line, so.
Any other questions for,
Are you dredging the north side?
Yes, we're dredging,
Because I know there's a huge mound up there on the top, so you.
yeah, that's the water taxi mound, basically.
Yeah.
So we're where the hand is, we're dredging all the way up about out here. Our total in-water dredge, the calculation is like 103,000 cubic yards. It's like 57, 58 on the upland side, so you're about 160 overall, plus or minus. And we've moved so far, I wanna say about 30,000 yards of material, 25, 30 so far. With no issues, by the way, no complaints for the trucks, other than some, minor dust issues, but very happy about that.
Well, the idiot that went across the Los Olas Bridge.
Different issue. So yeah, I mean, that's also in a nutshell. I think the big thing is, I didn't put it on here, but we do have a camera. If you guys ever want to look and see, it's losolasmarina.com/camera. You can see it's basically real time. It updates every 10 to 12 minutes, and you can look as well.
You have that in the minutes
I
that I
think Ms.
shared
George
with you.
sent that to us. That was great.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for, Mr. Metz?
How are the piles installed? What's the process?
For the,
I have your name, please.
Robert.
for the
Your last name?
White, Washington.
Thank you.
for the batters or the actual.
Yeah, the whole process of how to install the piles.
Yeah, so for the 75 footers, there's a template that we're building. So basically it's gonna be you can kind of see it here. I don't have the keyboard unfortunately to zoom in, but there's actually you see the screen, you see that little triangle? So that's about, in scale, that's about a 50-foot piece of steel. So that goes on right behind the wall. Batter goes onto it, rests on it, and the hammer basically drives it down. It's like a sled.
What about the vibration from the hammer hitting the pile?
Yeah, so we have full vibration monitoring through the entire site. Specifically, we have a permanent vibration monitor at Leisure Beach North, right in front. The piles themselves, because of the soil material, it's gonna go down probably about 45 feet before you have any vibration. Once it hits that, you don't feel that. The sheet wall though, that's where you do realize vibration, because it is vibratory installed, but the actual piles aren't so bad.
I noticed on the marina itself, you have a wooden pile, it looks like in there, round wooden pile. What's the length of them?
We'll have no wooden pile when we're done.
What was that picture that I seen over there with the floating docks?
This?
No, keep going. You showed a picture, I said,
I
then
think it was the first one.
first one,
There you go.
that there, aren't they wooden pile?
Rendering liberty.
They'll be concrete though.
Yeah, we have all steel piles. They'll be all steel.
All
All
steel.
steel
So
and
they
on
could be steel,
They're
steel
steel.
looking at that. Do you know what the depth is?
the embedment depth, I believe they're 43 foot piles. Don't quote me on that. I think you're looking at embedment depth about 18 or 20 feet, roughly. So you have about 10 to 12 out of water. If I recall correctly, that you're testing my memory.
Because that's been the biggest problem that I know in the area here, they haven't been deep enough, and what you already said is the soil is not, very good, down to 40 feet.
Yeah.
All right, so the depth of those pile are gonna make a big difference and stuff on whether or not those docks will stay there, because I said I just had some pictures and stuff of what happened in the Hollywood Marina.
Oh, yeah.
They weren't deep enough. And, and that storm that hit there was all the way down in the Keys, and the storm surge was enough to tear the marina apart.
Yeah.
Up and down the coast and here, same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's, I would be concerned of how deep that,
Yeah,
you're gonna
we're,
put 'em. 'Cause
so-
40 feet is nothing.
Yeah, I know, so from a, you know, when you do the permitting side of it for your engineering, you do a wind wave tide study. And the wind wave tide, you know, we're good in terms of a surcharge or, you know, any wave action. The question always becomes if it's fully, the whole thing is fully loaded with these types of vessels, your embedment depth, I mean, it's not gonna, you're good, at a category 5, you're gonna have damage, you know, there's just no way around that. But also, there's also reality too that the insurance for these vessels, they're not gonna allow them to stay, that's the other trick, you know, so you have to, and again, we have to weigh those things. We actually did look at increasing the depth, but you talk about putting in, you know, a 60, 70 foot,
Criteria they use at the EMR right next door. That one will be there in a category 5.
same spec, this is the same spec. Yeah, so Bellingham did do that, and so.
Bellingham requires that, yeah.
Correct, yeah.
I
so-
forgot, that's right, you are using Bellingham.
Yeah, but again, your embedment depth is.
Good outfit.
You know, so.
Anything else? Any other questions or comments? Andrew, state your name.
Andrew Cohen, will there be commercial tour boat dockage?
For tour boat per se, like probably not right now, it's not part of the thinking. Most that's really focused at the EMR. We think as a general kind of theme of what this marina is, it's probably better situated there. There's just better capacity for it. And it really, there's not really a space for it here that really makes sense. You know. But, you know, that's not a final decision by any means, just a comment.
Anything else?
Cool. All right, well, thank you, everybody. If you have any questions, please reach out, let me know. We're happy to come back and talk more. So,
Thank you very much.
All right, guys, take care.
Good job.
Enforcement is putting for fines to get under the channel. Yeah. That's why it's so.
All right, so, great presentation. I think it's good to stay on top of that. And Ms. George, thank you for keeping that as our liaison there and keeping us going for them.
Yeah, we have our HOA meeting tomorrow, so there won't be any new update for you, but we have it monthly.
Right.
Worst case monthly, sometimes more often.
And that webcam view is actually in our minutes from, I think, 2 or 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Ms. George supplied it to us.
Yeah, it's on the
as
top
well,
of our building, so.
So if you have any questions about the link, I'm sure we can get that situated too. It's a neat shot to watch the live action of it. It's been something else to see.
My screensaver.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it, thank you very much. All right, moving on to our next item, item 8 is we have an open discussion. We started this discussion last meeting, and I've asked Andrew to leave it on our agendas moving forward until we come up with a communication resolution to the commission. So it's the New River navigational concerns. I don't have anything specific to talk about on this tonight. We'll put it to the table, make sure, see if our members have anything to discuss. I believe, Jimmy, you've got something you wanted to bring up on this issue?
Yes, so we've started a kind of an outline for what could be a communication and things I have, maybe enough for everybody. If we can pass some down that way, what this is. It can be a starting point or it can be a communication from it. But it's basically, go up a second thing, you know, the city currently is unable to really enforce existing codes and laws that we have now. As looking at some of the stuff we just did. The marine industry is exploring having portions of the river become federal regulated navigation areas, which would be managed by the Coast Guard, as we've talked about before. Coast Guard defined measures the width of, it's just kind of notes that I'm not reading off of this, I'm reading you some notes that I took. Coast Guard defined measures the width of the channel and encroachment limited to how far from the edge of the channel, not from the bank. So it's kind of opposite of what we do now. So we're going from the seawall, how far out you can go. What they do is look at the channel is X amount of, you know, it's 90 feet wide, whatever. Here's the edge of the channel. You can have a certain amount of feet from that in this area of where it is. So it's kind of backwards from what we do. If we go to this Coast Guard or federally monitoring and enforcing what we do on New River. The code also currently, here is measured from the property line. The code allows for the new seawall to be, for a new seawall, if you're replacing them, which all of them are being replaced, allows it to be placed outside of the existing seawall, which potentially encroaches an additional 2 to 3 feet into the waterway. So if you're measuring from the seawall out, that pushes, the whole thing, tighter together, in the middle. Or it can even go the other way. It could give somebody more land space if their property line is out further. So the seawall is not necessarily the property line, and it's different all over the place. And these are basically reasons, I'll come back, I'll start at the end, reasons why we would want to ask for a moratorium until we can figure this out. That's the point, of all of these notes, of getting us to kind of stop with doing any variances along New River, until we kind of get our act together better. We have things going on now, the dock waivers that are coming up on Tuesday, which they're at the Coral Castle area, which, we've voted this board, to be against. Hopefully the commission agrees with us. The issue of Little Florida, which basically if the owners of Little Florida and the people directly across the river put docks, at the maximum allowable distances, the river would be, unnavigable for boats to be brought up to the boat yards. Additionally, the seawall at Huizinga Plaza, Huizinga Plaza is under, they're going to redevelop that. The seawall that's there and the walkway that's there now, it's on sharp angles, which specifically was to stop boats from physically being able to dock there,
Right.
At least of any length. And so it's, made a natural barrier to mechanically not be able to dock your boat there, as opposed to a sign saying, don't dock your boat here. The new drawing, that we've seen has some curves, so they've changed it from being so sharply angled to a more curvy thing. But that's just a preliminary drawing of what it could be. So potentially, they're also putting a restaurant, in there. And we know from our previous issue with Salt 7, it's a valuable thing for a restaurant to have dockage, as they're gonna have dockage for the steakhouse. So there would be a reason why they would wanna have dockage, right there, which we would be, the marine industry will be against, and I'm assuming that this board would be against as well. The Raintree property, is also under kind of redevelopment with moving the power lines. Right now, that is back on, so that project is happening. There's docks there at what is the marina that's there, which already are out very far into the river. Potentially, that could become an issue that would come before this board of wanting to have a variance to go out even further. Because, again, it's a marine, the more space that they get, they're gonna wanna go out the max, that they can, and then ask for a few more feet, beyond that. And basically, it's, what I'm doing is just kind of listing all the reasons, why we would be asking for a moratorium, just to come back. So it's not just the complaint list, but these are the reasons. Additionally, not so much on what this is, but, there's multiple, commercial vessels which are, within the city limits that are operating illegally. Mainly that they're not properly insured. They may not be using a licensed captain, using city docks illegally for pickups and drop-offs. And back to the original thing that I said, that currently the city is unable, to enforce existing codes and laws. And that shouldn't be, if we can't enforce the law, we should change the law, what it is. Or make sure that we're able to actually enforce it. So have, teeth in whatever it is that we're doing. Another concept though is that the bareboat charters that go on. So that's when people are renting boats, that aren't exactly a chartered boat. So they're basically saying, here, I'll rent your boat from you, I'll hire a captain, I'll do that. This is going on, now in our river, in intercoastal, happening. With a bareboat charter, the charterer, the renter becomes a disponent owner, which means that they have, in effect, are the owner of the boat during the time of charter that they have, which means that they're responsible for the insurance of the boat and all liability that goes along with that boat. You know, figure out how to check that, you know, so it's not happening, you know, that people are, they're doing this, they're not gonna go to an insurance company to rent a boat for 4 hours and get an insurance policy, you know, and do that. So we have those boats picking up now within the city, picking up their passengers at city docks, you know, doing that. If someone were to be hurt, you know, on that, it would be solely on the city, you know, as far as the only one with deep pockets at all. You know, no insurance company, there would be no insurance, you know, on that. Not a good thing, you know, it could be very expensive for the city. Also, presently, the liability for a commercial boat is what's required is only to have the insurance for the value of the boat, you know, is all that it is. So if you have $1 million boat, you need $1 million worth of liability insurance for the boat. But after the dive boat incident in California in 2019, where 34 people died, that that is changing everything. In the $1.7 trillion bill that just passed, you know, our government, part of that bill is that is changing. So now it has changed where the owner is the commercial boat owner is liable for everything. So now they can't be sued. So in other words, the value of the boat, that's it. So it's where, and I could be wrong on some of the specifics of this, but basically the cost of insurance for a commercial boat will be going up. You know, is what's effectively that'll mean, is that I need to have enough insurance. If I'm carrying 10 people, how much is a person worth if they die? You know, what's my potential, you know, thing? So instead of $1 million of insurance, I may need to have $10 million or $20 million of insurance, which means that if you're doing illegal charters now, and you know, you can't get insurance, you know, you can't get people to buy insurance, what's gonna happen with this? It's gonna be even worse, you know, thing. So the need for, you know, the right codes, the right enforcement, the right laws, you know, is very important, you know, to have. And it's something that we just don't have, you know, right now. So kind of and basically what the paper that I handed out, you know, kind of goes into that without a whole lot of detail, you know, of the things. And so I think that, you know, if we were to ask for, you know, send a communication basically saying, you know, we have a whole bunch of issues that, you know, are potential things of why we shouldn't be having come before this board, putting a piling in at 35 feet or whatever, you know, the number is, and, you know, making those decisions for now, you know, until we can kind of figure it out. And limiting that to only along the New River, because the New River really is a navigable, you know, waterway that's important for our industry. It's important for our city, you know, to have that. But, you know, on a canal, yes, you know, we can still give variances, we can still, you know, work aside from the New River corridor. So I would limit, you know, what our moratorium I would have. That's just me, you know, we want to limit the moratorium to be of the New River corridor, you know, from the mouth of the New River to beyond the boat yards, you know, that we don't give any variances for a period of time. So that's what I've done with my time off. Patience, did you have anything that you'd like to add on that you just thought I left off?
No, we're good. I mean, there's a couple other reasons why the problems are, like Norbert pointed out, so the other day, the pilings and things, the commercial access to make the seawalls is critical, and the more we crunch in on everything, the worse it gets.
Yeah, I think, you know, looking at the New River and having been here now, boated the river for over 40 years, I've learned a lot about it, and you guys have learned even more. Norbert, you're a wealth of information on this, but when we look at our communication to the commission, I think we have to be very cautious of what our goal here is. And I think from what I understand, our goal is to have a temporary moratorium until we have a time to analyze, not we, but they, collectively, the team, to analyze the impacts of further infringement on the river, basically, right? So, Ms. George?
So I agree with everything that's been said so far. The couple questions though that come to mind for me is that I expect if we submitted something like this, the first questions would be, what do you expect to do and what's your timeline? You know, so I would think that it might be prudent for us to incorporate in this to say, you know, by certain checkpoint timeframes that we would try to have certain things that we would wanna accomplish to help the process, because I think if we just say this and expect the city to do it all,
No, it's not gonna.
it's not gonna happen. So I think that there should be responsibility that we have of what we're going to do and when we're going to do it to help them along in that process. And I know it was discussed about taking commissioner up the river. I mean, I can tell you that December 23rd, I took friends up the river to see all in a small boat, you know, just a 21-foot. And I felt like I was taking my own life in my hands, because people were, the wahoos that were out, the craziness that was going on. And then the number of times the bridge closing that, for the Bright Line trains and everything else, it backs up there. And so all of those things, I think that they need to see those things, and you don't see it from shore.
Right.
I mean, my friends that were in the boat were shocked. They've lived here for many years, have never done that ride to see the lights, and they were almost horrified what they were seeing on the water. So I think it's very powerful to add that.
So if I could, actually I'm gonna ask patients to address, you know, where we're at as far as with Marine Industry Association and
Just gonna ask you
things
about
there.
that.
You know, the issue that we have as a board is the sunshine law. So we can only deal with what we're doing now at our meetings, you know, things as far as what we can do to help. The marine industry is not, you know, so that, not covered by sunshine laws. The marine industry can be proactive. We can only be proactive with ideas that are happening from this, you know, no subcommittees or, you know, or whatever from here per se. So as far as on the, we can support, through myself, whatever, marine industry initiatives with how we go about and even be members of any boards or subcommittees that could be assembled by the city to be doing this, to be looking at this, because there's a lot of issues, that have to do with this. But let me ask patients to speak towards kind of a little bit of status of the tours and Coast Guard situation.
Tours, every commissioner was invited on a tour where Vice Mayor Stern implied we just having a step timing conference. He actually has another little job. Commissioner Pamela Beasley Pittman is already scheduled. She's going on February 9th with her, and she's bringing her staff with her. And city manager Greg has asked if he and his staff could do city staff could do a tour so that they get more familiar with it. So we're working on a schedule for that too, because there's like inconvenient Tuesdays that they're busy and we can't seem to find the right date. But that's part of the problem is when we try to get all the cats together, it's a little. But we have not heard from Commissioner Glassman. The mayor has in the past done the tour because he's been around for a while, so I don't know that he truly needs one. He thanked us for the invitation, but preferred. And John, I need to reach out to him again. I always say this is beginning of the holidays, so I don't know that everybody was really paying attention, but they've all been invited.
Commissioner Glassman was on a cruise.
Picking up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when we look at this issue and we look at the education, if you will, of the commissioners, we have to also look at the education of the layperson and the involvement of the homeowners along with the commercial operators, along with the shipyards up the river and all of that. So I really would like to see us, as part of our communication, request some sort of a town hall schedule to where we could get industry, whether it's towing guys, the towboat operators, whomever, the ones that are actually making their living on the river, and we all know what the size of the economic impact that river has on this industry, and also open it to the homeowners. So there's this, we have to make solutions that work for everyone. And a solution that works for everyone means someone is unhappy on both sides of the aisle, right? That's what compromise really is, when both sides are unhappy. And the homeowners wanna have bigger docks, they wanna have bigger boats. The marine operators need to be able to safely operate up and down the river. So they're at odds with one another on that. Public safety is our biggest concern, and Sergeant O'Neill can certainly speak to that as well. The New River is becoming increasingly busy, increasingly volatile, if you will. I think, Ms. George, your comment is one I hear very often
Yeah.
from people that make the trip up the river. You know, we just took, my company took a water taxi ride to see the lights with all of our employees. So we put 100 and some people onto a water taxi and gave them a spin around the New River for one of the nights. And they were all shocked, actually, at how crazy the New River can be.
Yeah.
And they're all, most of them are professional captains, professional mariners, so it's tough to see that. You know, Bob, you certainly, you've seen it firsthand. So I think we have to have that element of engagement with the public on this too. So we have to be very careful of our communications and the direction of our communications. Because ultimately what we want is a river that can be enjoyed by the public, that can be safely navigated by recreational boaters, commercial boaters alike, and one that supports the biggest economic engine of the city, which is our marine industry. So that's really the education process that's kind of got to happen here. So when we look at the moratorium, we have to really figure out how to get all that information to everyone. It's far beyond just what we can do as a board. Our issues, and Norbert, I think you articulated them very well in the last meeting with the amount of seawalls that have to get worked on, the amount of docks that have to get raised, the amount of pilings that have to get taken out and replaced. There's a tremendous amount of work that the marine industry needs to do to support the goals of raising all those seawalls. And there's canals you can't even get down with your barges. You've got to pull a piling to get down the canals and put them back on your way back out. It's a huge effort. And to further complicate these things, especially along the New River, where we are seeing a dramatic increase in the size of vessels on both sides, the homeowner and also on the commercial side. You know, a 50-foot boat used to be a big boat. Now we've got center consoles that are 65 feet, much less, the larger yachts and all. So it's becoming an increasing issue for us all.
We have already, to be honest with you, we have already taken a lot of big marine contractors out of the picture. Two of them I know that I work for, they no longer will even bid anything in here, and I'm talking $1 million job, all right, they can't do it. So they're turning it over to people that have smaller barges and that can fit into these different areas to do it. So the problem that has arisen, what I showed everybody in there, they can't carry all the equipment and all the structure in and out, so they have to make several trips. So the cost of the seawall has gone ungodly high. What used to be $700-800 a foot, and he can tell you right now is $1,200 or $1,500 a foot. It doubled in the last couple of years. One of the notes that would say on there that on the New River, that as an observer, people are buying on the New River because they don't want to buy in an area where they can get a larger boat. So their idea is that if I buy a less expensive place on the New River, let's say in Tarpon or Crescent Park or something in that area smaller, and the home is less than that, that I can get a variance and I can do the same thing with this boat putting it out. That would be like me. I live on an area where I have a fixed bridge. So it would be like me going in and I buy into that neighborhood and say, you know what, the best boat I can get in there right now is a 23-footer and stuff. You know what I'd really like to do is get a 35 or 40-footer. Maybe I'll get the city to raise the bridge. And why would I want the city, and that's what we're asking the city for somebody that is buying a boat with already the intention that they're gonna put an 80 or 90-foot boat out into the river because it looks like they got plenty of room to go out there. So let the city correct the mistake. And what do we have? What are we looking at here? Oh, I have to have this done because the wake, I have to have it done because of the storms and everything else. So I'm looking for the city to correct the mistake that I made by getting a boat that's too big for what they can actually do by code. 25 feet, if I stood by that restriction and I say, okay, I'll buy a boat that fits, I get a shoe that fits my feet, is what I'm saying, is basically. So I can't depend on the city, or I shouldn't depend on the city to correct the mistake that I made.
I think one of the other issues we see, especially on the New River, is multiple docks being built in the same residence. And, we all hear, oh, they're not for rent, they're not for this, they're not for that. But we go by these in the future and we see 75, 80, 90-foot yachts with for sale signs on them, 3 or 4 of them at the same residence. So we know that there's issues there with code enforcement not correctly going after those people. So I have a question for Sergeant O'Neill in that. I know the city of Fort Lauderdale, man, I don't mean to put you on the spot at all, Sergeant. The city of Fort Lauderdale has that code enforcement boat they have now. Is that being manned and staffed? 'Cause I think you guys, it's out of your facility, isn't it?
It's parked at 15th Street.
Yeah. Did you see that actively being
Oh, yeah,
used?
for sure.
Okay.
For sure. I know the officer, who's the code enforcement officer who works, name's Manny. I know him. He's out on it.
Okay.
So I know he's probably doing good work, cause on the Sandbar Facebook group, they complain all the time about him, so he must be doing something.
Yeah, right.
They're all pissed off at him, so I'm sure they do.
Sergeant, here's a question that I have for you. You get a variance and stuff over there. On there, we have right hand up to God, this and that and everything else, that I will not put a boat out beyond the pile and everything else and stuff on it, so they get a variance and stuff in here, they build a dock and they put a boat out. Now, code enforcement has no idea that that boat's in violation. Why? Because it's less than 30% of the canal.
Right.
So it could be out 80 feet and he could only be 3 feet from the guideline of 30. By moving that dock and by moving them pile all the way out, he has put his boat out on the other side. That's done all the time. Code enforcement wouldn't have any idea that they're violating the code. They'd look and they'd say, hey, you know what? You're within 30%. If they went back and looked at it, they'll find out this person had an affidavit, signed it, gave them their dog, everything else and stuff in order to build this thing out there. And they promised the world. And basically, they did it anyway. And there's no way to stop them. And what I'm saying is, there is no code that stops the 30% rule.
Well, that's, when we're talking, and I think Jimmy talked about this earlier, we're looking at the New River specifically. Because the 30% rule for canals, I totally agree, I think it works by and large on most of our canals. On the New River, it's a unique circumstance. The fact that it is being used heavily for commercial traffic and heavily for commercial operations is something that makes that 30% rule kind of untenable, if you will, along the New River. So, when you talk about a specific area, that's where, really getting into an RNA makes a lot of sense. Because the Coast Guard can then have a lot more stipulations on what happens there rather than just a 30% code.
How do you know what I'm hearing all the time? How do you know what's, that they say, oh, this pile, including the person that's coming over on the 20th, they have piles that are already out beyond the 25 feet. And their thing is grandfathered. You tell me when the pile was put in that it's grandfathered. Because I tell you what they do, they build a dock and they build and they get everything set up and everything else and stuff on it. They go away and you get a CO from the city for the dock. Next time the barge or contractors in the area, they put the pile in there. All right? So when they get caught, oh, that's grandfathered. Why? There is no record of those pile being put in. So if there's no record, they say, oh, that was put in 40, 50 years ago and stuff over there, so it's grandfathered in. So how can you tell what piles are grandfathered and which were put in last year? See, there is no way to say grandfathered. It's either out beyond where it's supposed to be, whether it's grandfathered or not.
Right.
Because they made a code of 25 feet. So this pile is out 30-some feet. It's out there right now.
To me, it's either compliant or non-compliant. If it's non-compliant, if there's not a waiver on record, then it's non-compliant.
Right.
I think that answer for code enforcement should be fairly straightforward.
Yeah, the permitting records on file are electronic going ways back, but they're also a hard copy before
Yeah,
that.
but
But if it's in violation, it should be pulled out. It should be reported and pulled out.
And then they put in there, what I'm saying is it's not, It's like I was saying, that picture that I showed you, going down River Area Isles, for one thing, you go down there, we had to pull every pile out. Every one of them is grandfathered, all right? So they were put in there before they made the code. So how do you get them to put it back? Because you changed the code? First thing, you're gonna have all kinds of people say, wait a minute, you're having me do something for the people that had the property before me.
I think the issue, the concern of mission creep, I think, is a real issue. Not to, pardon the put up, muddying the waters here, but the average canal in the city of Fort Lauderdale is probably full of non-compliant pilings. We know that.
Absolutely.
we really can't come up with a solution or tie that to the New River issue, because I think it's two entirely separate issues. I think one is an enforcement issue and one is a regulatory issue, if you will. So I think, when we look at this, and patience, give me 1 second, I'm gonna get to you. We have to focus on the New River, because that's our big topic issue right there. And non-compliant filings on the New River, I think, are definitely part of the scope of our conversation. Patience?
That would be right.
Is it possible to do an ordinance that says if your waiver to piling, you're not allowed to, that's the furthest you can reach of that piling?
That's a,
If you want a waiver, I come to you and I say, I've got 50-foot boat and I want outboard pilings, and you say, okay, so we're gonna let you do the piling 60 feet out. They legitimately come with a waiver. But there's an ordinance that says that if you requested a waiver, you can't go past the waivered length of the piling.
That-
And that's a
we've had
that's a
requests in the past that we've actually tied a boat length to the waiver request.
The boat length would take all that out.
That's a visual that the code can go, well,
Yeah.
he's definitely over the 60 feet. He's past the piling, whether he's not,
Right.
It gives them something to
Well,
go
you look
by, they
at,
don't have to get out a tape measure
The
and
ones at
look
Coral
at the
Castle.
old records, you can just
How
look
many
at
of
the
those boats are
boat's
actually
not
past the pilings now, virtually all of them, you see that across the board, and I think, Norma, you mentioned that last meeting.
What's that?
How many boats are actually past the pilings
Yeah.
as you go by them now? This is, it's a big issue, and it's not something we can solve in a night. What do we
No, I
think
agree.
about?
The New River should be our main concern and stuff on there.
Go ahead,
And
Steve.
you know, what we were saying is, about 10-15 years ago, we had, like what Jimmy was saying, is you're not expecting the city to make those changes and stuff. This board can make them, and we did.
We can
About
recommend.
10-15 years ago,
Yep.
there was a code that said boat lifts, no more than 10 feet offshore. And we were getting one after another on variances. Well, can we go out 3 feet more, 4 feet more, and everything else? So this board came up with a solution, and we said, why don't we allow the same distance as you would if you put a boat out there to 25 feet?
Right.
And the city says, great, because the board, we came up with that. We submitted that as a conversation to the commission. The commission said, good idea, and guess what? It was done. So now we have a boat lift that can be out 25 feet.
We know that right now, they're still working on the rewriting of the proposed ordinance change that was taken off the voting docket. a few months
I
ago.
don't know if
Still
that's a-
gone, I think
Wait.
it's not.
I think it's went away.
It's,
Yeah.
they have not come to a
Waiting for
solution
the
to it.
new commission,
Right. So they're gonna take that issue back up, so that issue is still unresolved. Whether it's this year or next year, who really knows? That issue's gotta come back up, because it's a public interest issue that, was raised in the first place. So now is the time to sort of get along that very line, and we'll get into the idea of how we can recommend, because that is one of our roles here, is to study and recommend to the city commission. That's our goal here. So we can't dictate, we can recommend. But as the industry experts that, that we're at this table is, that's our input. So,
a question, so if we were to say, start with this as a guideline and, not come up with a communication tonight, so that whatever we're gonna do, say at the next meeting, in between, what would be our best way to massage this or to change it, to have people's input, on it? To do that and like send it to you? Could we be doing suggestions and where we're actually doing things on email?
Well, you can come through me. You can't go through one another because of the sunshine rule. And I think what we're saying is that we need to come up with a list of priorities.
Yes.
It sounds like a list of priorities. And work on that list as a group. And in the meanwhile, yes, people can send them to me and I can consolidate them prior to the next meeting on February 2nd and distribute that to the group as part of the agenda backup. So yes.
it's also important that we make sure that our marine industry folks, especially the commercial guys, are at the city commission meetings, they're at the MAB meetings, they have a voice that gets put on record, and they actually put their opinions out there. Because we have had instances here where an applicant will say, well, so-and-so is okay with this. It's not in writing, and apparently if they're not officially against it, they're okay with it. So, there's a lot of inference there, I think it's gotta get straightened out as well. So, it's important that when these things come out of the city commission, that there is industry that says, hey, actually, I'm against this, or, oh yeah, I'm all for this. So that there is an engagement level there that's gotta increase, I think, with that.
So, well, one thing that you brought up, that was mission creep, and I think that it's important for us to focus on what the communication will be first.
Yep.
To keep it limited to like, this is how we wanna craft a communication to the commission, which basically is, here's the reasons why we're asking for moratorium. This is what the moratorium means. And like, Elizabeth was saying, that in what it is that we expect the marine industry to be working with the city, to be coming up with ideas. We would want to be part of any subcommittees, any groups that are formed, with help of, crafting any changes to ordinance that the city, is doing.
Proposed ordinances. Steve, you had your hand up, and I apologize. Go ahead.
No, don't be silly. There's a bunch of things here, and we're all on the same page. I actually think that with respect to what goes to the commissioner, I think this is a great outline. I think it has to be a flowery narrative that kind of really explains the impact. And so one of the things I did after the last meeting, we talked about meeting with commissioners. So I'm meeting with Steve Glassman. I recommend everybody meet with your commissioner because they really give a shit about this. I mean, if you sit and talk to them, I think it'll be very helpful. I think Elizabeth's point is very, very important here. I think if we go to the commission, we have to put a time on this. We can't simply ask for an open moratorium.
Right.
And my feeling is, and I have notes all over the page, we've talked about the loss of commercial operations and the impact. That is first and foremost. The fact that somebody can't get up New River and go somewhere else and they're out of business is extremely important. The non-compliance we talked about, et cetera. So I think, and the fact that we're focused solely on New River and possibly coming up with changing the code so there isn't a uniform code. So as we've said, what happens on New River doesn't necessarily happen on my canal because they're very different. So going back to Elizabeth's point, I would suggest that we go to the board with a time period where we say, give us 6 months, give us 9 months, basically put everything on hold on the New River for a very specific period of time, a short period of time, so we can come up with some really significant issues on how to deal with this. Because for the short period of time that I've been on the board here, particularly what potentially could happen at the North and South Fork could really shut things down. And I don't think there's any more important issue in front of this board right now. So again, my suggestion is we give them a specific time frame where we ask that we simply put things on hold to give us time to come up with
About a 1 year, 12-month moratorium.
You know, the problem is 6 months goes by so quickly.
Like that.
I think a year moratorium would be great.
Especially given the restraints of the Sunshine Law for our communications, it's
And then
a
if you're an
halty
owner on
process.
New River, you know that we're trying to work things out, and it truly is in your benefit.
I would like to get their input on this.
Sure.
So I think it's important to have the homeowner and the commercial operators both.
We talked
In this
about public
discussion.
meetings, correct.
And town halls, I think, are the way to do that. So if we can encourage our commissioners through our individual meetings and communications.
So let me
to
just
pursue
finish
sometimes.
that.
We can't do it. We
As
can't do it town.
As Jimmy just said, and I had the same issue when I met with Andrew, because I would love if Jimmy and myself and Elizabeth and whoever sits down and put together a plan, et cetera. We can't do it with respect to the Sunshine Laws. So I'm just trying to figure out how we can come up with something where we can actually talk like business people.
We can do it here. We can do it
But it has to
here.
be done here.
Has to be posted properly.
A workshop, how would we manage a workshop outside of this scheduled meeting? For maybe to have
Add
a
another
workshop
meeting.
together. Can we do a public
I
notice?
mean, it sounds as simple as me setting up another public meeting, but there's more to it than
Right.
that. There needs to be the authorization to do that.
Right.
So, it would have to come through the city manager. I think via commissioner, the authorization, the commission probably would have to authorize it. So,
So if we talk to our commissioners to
potential,
try to
yeah.
push for that,
we're allowed to
that-
meet as a Marine Advisory Board alone. And anything above and beyond that has to come from above.
From the bus.
I thought that sunshine law, that's something had to be, what I understand from previous ones, that it had to be something that was on the agenda that If, for instance, if I go and see a couple people at downtown or something like that, and I'm talking about something that, even what we're talking about tonight, it's not on the agenda for any kind of vote. It would be for an impact thing. Why would that be a violation of the sunshine law? It's not on any agenda. And from what I understand from the previous attorney, not this one, that isn't a violation of the sunshine law unless it's actually on the agenda. That you're actually discussing things on the agenda. How would you vote on this? How would you vote on that? Forget that. If we got at a barbecue or something, and we're sitting at a barbecue and stuff, and we start talking about maybe a charter on the river or something else, not on the agenda.
Interesting point, Norbert.
I think you're asking for an additional meeting that would be called a workshop,
Yes.
right? So can we make a motion to call a workshop? And then you'll post it just like you post these regular meetings?
Well, I can post anything. We used to have the county meetings with the board, you may recall, and that was simply a matter of posting it so it was in the sunshine. But I think when you're talking about a workshop, which will come up with communication to the commission effectively, we have to get their authorization to look into it first. This is a little different.
Subcommittee.
It's not a general, yes,
Right.
it's, a subcommittee is the word that nobody wants to use, but that's what it sounds like.
That's the
Right,
four
but
letter
I
word.
think that if we, for now, like for our next meeting, is just focus on the communication, and then it would be to ask for a workshop or subcommittee, whatever.
So why don't we do this? Why don't we leave this topic on our agenda for the next meeting? And let's all have our final thoughts, if you will, on what that communication should look like. And then the next meeting, we can actually come up with that communication.
Meanwhile, be sending them
Yeah,
Right.
to the.
Right.
Get them to me.
Right.
Yeah, and I'll consolidate it.
And you can consolidate it and have a working group basically within our public meeting that's already scheduled, just like we are right now. So let's all brainstorm on it, get things through Andrew. Next meeting, let's come up with our official communication to the commission on the subject of a 12-month moratorium on waiver requests for the New River.
The problem, Ted, is January the 15th, we have a variance that's gonna affect the New River. If they pass that and stuff over there, then you can forget about what we said about the moratorium, because what's coming out there, they wanna pile out 60 feet out to the New River.
January 10th.
January 10th.
10th.
January 10th.
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
So isn't that why we wanna have some of us there so that we can?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'll be there, but I can't speak for the board.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
and so one thing from our last one, only one person was allowed to speak, for the board, so.
But we were all there,
I'll
I
be
mean, I think
going-
it helped a lot.
Yeah, I'll
It
be
did.
We
talking
can be
to-
there, but that's it.
The issue,
Yes, I'll be talking-
I just looked at the agenda for 6 PM, it's a very, very full agenda, and it's late in the agenda, so
So I'll be
expect
speaking
to be there till late.
to Warren Sturman ahead of time, of doing it, and I would encourage everyone to go on Monday or whenever their commission. Meeting is talk to the commissioners ahead of time, and I think that would be more impactful than showing up at the meeting, so they would go in preloaded,
Well, I think it's important to that, we're not singling out any single application or applicant here. This is a process that we're seeing an increasing, a groundswell, if you will, of this problem becoming more and more evident and the requests are getting more and more common.
And actually, if we do, it's something, if we're having those talks, with commissioners, it's like to talk about this.
Yeah.
Talk about what we're talking about tonight, as well. And the reason why we're asking to vote against that is these reasons, this whole thing.
It's interesting, so as Norbert was aware, so I got a number of bids to do my dock and seawall, so I got to speak with a number of the contractors. And to suggest that there's a level of apathy with them about about what we can impact and change, et cetera, because they've heard this many times before. So you talk to a marine contractor, and he hears that the Marine Advisory Board is focused on operations on the river, and they go, yeah. So I think that the first message has to go out is to show that we're really serious about this, and I think that that's a big part of this.
If we start talking to our commissioners,
You bet.
We've got a new commission.
Serious,
Yeah.
So this is a time to, a new broom sweeps clean, as they say.
Yeah.
So communication is the first part of that. Barry, go ahead.
Is there a way to find out if the commission will allow additional speakers and last time, that was totally unprecedented,
Where they shut it,
It's the mayor that makes the decision.
Well,
And he makes a decision while it's happening based on who's in the room.
and based on how the schedule is going as well.
Yeah, and with the size of this agenda, it looks,
but that would be something I think you need to wanna bring to the commissioners that we talked to before, that this is what happened last time.
I would expect, because of the agenda that's scheduled, to have limited speaking opportunities for us. So it's,
But you were able to, the last time, give a turn and say, we have half the board.
Right.
You know, I don't think that.
well, we also had I could elucidate a pretty clear and cogent argument that we all had come together with, and it was one voice from many, and it was successful in that regard.
That was the second time it happened.
and at least one of the commissioners already knew about it, cause I had the discussion with Commissioner Glassman.
All right,
You can also sign up before the meeting, not necessarily to speak, but in support or against an item.
right.
And leave a note there that, you know, I'm not there to speak, I support the resolution barring the installation of,
When are those notes read, Andrew?
when they get to the item.
They're attached, the city clerk attaches them?
The mayor will have, the list of people that signed up to speak for an item or, the other information associated.
And those are those little,
Well, they have an electronic system now, but yes,
Okay.
it turns into a little card.
that's important also, that we go on record, even if we don't speak, we should at least go on record in that format then, okay.
Isn't that available online prior to the meeting?
There's two different ways, yes, one of them is online electronically and also at a desk in the lobby before the meeting.
Oh, that's great.
So if you can't make it to the meeting, you can do it via electronic.
That's correct, but just make sure you put a note, you're not there to speak, but you're supporting a resolution or against a resolution. You just have to be clear in your note,
Right. You're either for or against.
that's the difference.
Okay. All right, in the meantime, patients in your group will continue to work on their education program and shine a light on this very important topic.
And I don't know I don't know how Sunshine works. Can a Marine Advisory Board member attend the waterway tour with a commissioner?
They can attend,
Just can't say anything.
one can speak on behalf of the group, one person can speak on behalf of the group, typically it would be the chair.
We can't all go.
No,
But-
but
If it's business that relates to the board.
if we do a waterway tour, I can let you know that we're going and someone is welcome to join us.
You could invite the whole group. They can't all speak,
Oh,
they can't all speak for sure. They can probably
Good
go.
luck.
I mean, it's one of those gray areas. I know that only one person can represent the board locally when it comes to business matters.
Okay.
Could you keep us abreast of that and just reach out, because I'm sure one of us would love to join that.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
boat rides.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And in the meantime, we're gonna keep this as an open item on our agenda, just until we have this communication. And even after, I wanna keep this as an open discussion item, because I think it's a very important, and Steve, as you said, I think it's the most important subject we have before us right now is the New River itself, because there's a lot of stuff going on there. We've gotta have a plan for how best we can help the city move forward with that. Andrew, you had any note or any comment you had, I know you were looking some things up there.
Oh, no, I was
Anything
just
you
looking
wanna
at the sunshine law rules, but, we have a new city attorney coming on, so they may have a different viewpoint of these
Lucky
tours.
guy.
I'm not sure how that's gonna play out. So,
Okay.
I'll let you know what
Can
I,
we find out?
Well, when I get a charge,
once that person's here.
one city attorney says one thing and another city attorney says something else and stuff over there, so there's nothing written in stone, obviously. I said when Mayor Norgal was in here, we went on
Oh, yeah, I
dozens
remember.
of them. And all of a sudden, I mean, what changed? Did the sunshine law change in the last year or 2 or 3 years?
Well, I want this to be a totally transparent, totally open process, so that, you know, nothing is untoward, nothing can be said, hey, you're trying to get things through the back door or anything like that. This is a totally public, totally open forum, and I'm gonna encourage more public, involvement in this, and more public discussion, because really, that's who we're here to represent and hear from is our public. Whether they're
Transparency.
homeowners, whether they are commercial operators, towboat operators, whatever. But it's the folks with the liability that move those things up and down the river that we have to look at too. You know, the environmental impact, safety, human life, and the economy. So, all right, Moving on, I guess from that discussion point, any old or new business? Ms.
I
George?
just have one question. I just happened to look at the commissioner agenda, and there's something about a Merle Fogg Park seawall replacement. I don't know what that is.
Have you seen the seawall at Merle Fogg Park?
I don't even know where Merle Fogg Park
Okay,
is,
Rich,
so.
you've seen the seawall.
Yeah.
You go over the bridge to the beach, and you look to your right, there's a little anchorage, where there's anchorage,
It's by
and there's a little, a mooring,
Bridge.
the Las
Las
Vegas
Vegas
Bridge, the Las
Really?
Vegas Bridge.
Is there a mooring
It's
fee?
called that?
There's a collapsed seawall there that you'll,
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, no, okay,
it's in bad shape, yeah.
okay. Was that something that went through this group, or was?
No, it wouldn't because, it collapsed a couple years ago, there's no doubt about it. It's an infrastructural challenge,
Okay, I
and
don't,
it's taken,
I don't walk on that area.
it's a public works.
That's where all
Yeah, it's
the,
it's a public
that's
works
where all
item,
the,
so it's replacing of existing, so we
Homeless all
would.
It's
hang
a
out.
beautiful little park, it's gonna look
it's
nicer.
where all the homeless hang out.
It's a nice park.
It's gonna be great for them. Alright, Norbert, anything
Thank you.
else?
There once
Any other-
the seawall's done.
We're on the table, any other old or new business to discuss, anyone here? Any member from the public to bring up anything to our attention or any discussion points from the public? Ed, good to see you.
I put my name in to join this board.
Excellent.
I've lived in Fort Lauderdale since 1962, on and off. I've been a boater, I live on the water, 14th Street, very concerned. I rolled off the FXC board late last year, turned down. So, this is I like to fly and I also like to play on my boats.
Sounds like me.
Did I get his name?
Ed Rebolts.
What was the last name?
Rebolts.
Oh, yes.
If there's anything you need for, Andrew can certainly help you, any questions or communications you've got. We like to get fresh blood, we like to get, we do have some vacancies right now, and we're trying to get those filled, so we want more input from people that care, both from industry and from the general public and homeowners, so it's great to have that involvement. So thank you very much for that, sir, appreciate it.
Okay, I don't think I introduced myself right. Okay, my name's Robert Washington. I'm from the Florida Properties Car Drivers Union. Norbert invited me here. Was interested in the program. Like what I hear. See that you guys do care. You want to fix the problem. Don't know how we're going to do it. So we got to do it together. Thanks for having me for sitting in.
It's a pleasure to have someone who knows what they're doing as well.
I installed it. I hear you guys and I want to help. I mean, I
That's
wish
great.
I can.
Like I said, we need as much cross experience as possible on our board, and having your experience. I mean, Norbert's our resident expert on construction, but we always have a lot of questions that come up, so it'd be great to have more experience on there as well.
Happy to help.
He hasn't been stumped yet on a question about construction, so.
Not that we know anyway.
Not that we know anyway.
Pretty good.
So as always, everyone, I appreciate your time and your, this is a big chunk of our night, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to be here and serve our fellow citizens of Fort Lauderdale. It means a lot to us.
Great job.
Thank you all very much,
Really good.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
If nothing further, motion to adjourn,
Oh, yeah.
we're done. Thank you all. Thank you, Carla.